Just do that. Okay. And getting this setup ready. And all right, here we are. And yeah, thanks everyone for coming. My name is Juan with the Wake County Housing Justice Coalition, and joining me is the fellow core member Wanda Gilbert Coker. And we also have our guests, Mr. and Mrs. Eugene Myrick and attorney Nigel Edwards. So without further ado, why don't we go around for introduction of our guests?
Hello, everyone. This is Wanda Gilbert Coker. You'll just see a little icon, a little picture today. My face eventually got 5 or 6 things going on in the background, so I will spare you. But thank you for coming. If this feels familiar, maybe because this time last year we had a similar, very similar um, Zoom or podcast with the same issue. There was going to be the city of Raleigh had planned a zoning public hearing during Ramadan around the same time, like I said, around the same time as Ramadan, that was going to impact the Muslim community off of Western Boulevard. Um, and we're like, out of all the times and doing the that you can have this type of public hearing, you could push this off and just wait. There's no way they would do this during any other holiday, especially a Christian holiday. They would not have a hearing during the Easter holidays that would impact, say, one of the large major church. So we're again back again. They learned nothing the first time. They did reschedule the last one. So I would think, they would not, they would have it on the calendar. Beep, beep. Let's not do this again because they know this zoning request also impacts a very, very the large Muslim community, and that is the mosque off of Martin Luther King, which Nigel will have more to say about that. But again, I'm Wanda Gilbert Coker. Most people know me, and if you don't, like I tell others, Google me. I don't want to waste the time, but we are Wake County Housing Justice Coalition. Now, that's what you really need to know. We are advocacy, activists, freedom fighter, um, the fight for the rights of those that have been disenfranchised, that have been evicted, that have been marginalized, the unhoused, the homeless, those who have been impacted by higher taxes because of Wake County and because of gentrification. That is who we advocate for. That's the activism level we're on. We're very radical. If you're looking for the nice bunch to say, please, please, that is not us, because many of our members have been impacted as well. So that is who we are, Wake County Housing Justice Coalition. We all do this work for free, but we do take cash out. Okay. So I'm going to pass this to Nigel because we do not get paid for this work, but it is sacrifice. It's a sacrifice, and it does hit our wallets hard. I just want to say, but it's worth it for the people, by the people. So I'm going to pass it to Nigel, and then from Nigel, we're going to go to Mr. and Mrs. Eugene Myrick.
Yes, I'm actually good until 6 o'clock today. I don't have to leave early, so staying with tradition, I don't mind letting ladies go first. If Keisha wants to.
Okay, okay, all right. We'll let Keisha go. Then, well, Keisha, um, I, because of your husband, I always get your last name mixed up. I won't say Myrick, but you got Mr. and Mrs. Myrick. However you want to go, but I would say award winning. Yes, we're gonna claim that. And then her husband, then to Nigel. But we are talking about the bigotry that Muslims face, and it during Ramadan, that the city just looks over any looks over a person's religious rights, and if they're doing it for Muslims, they most definitely do it for Black people, and how this bigotry impacts their decision making when it comes to the planning process, and that basically what they need, which is one of our demands, is racial equity training.
Mhm.
So yeah, so we're speaking to the bigotry that around Black land, that's impacting Ramadan and in our community. Okay. Go
Awesome.
ahead, Keisha.
Wanda, we appreciate you so much for allowing Eugene and I to share your platform. I think one of the most frustrating things about what's going on at Shaw University right now is that our message has been muted. The media, a few people from the media have reached out to us to get our side of how we feel. However, we feel kind of suppressed. So we appreciate you sharing your platform with us in this forum tonight. I'm Keisha. That's Eugene. I'm typically known as Keisha Monk, but he gave me the he gave me the last name of Myrick. Um, we created Save Our Shaw, the Save Our Shaw Coalition, first and foremost because Shaw is ours. It doesn't matter if you graduated from Shaw University. Shaw University's history, and so we feel that as we have become more and more vocal about the redevelopment issue, we wanted to try to create a strategic alliance, not only with the Muslim community, who has been really treated horribly throughout this entire situation, but just for those who have an appreciation for history, and with Shaw being the first historically Black college in the South, with us having the first 4-year medical school in the country, not just Black, but in the country. We're just rich. We're very, very significant as it relates to the civil rights movement, the home of Ella Baker, the home of SNCC. I could go on and on and on. But the bottom line is, even with over 1,800 signatures that we've collected at saveourshaw.org, and a significant amount of public pressure, especially from the Muslim community, Shaw has still been very, very vague about their plans. And that's very troubling to us, especially as alumni, and us knowing the history of how ill-informed people can be taken advantage of. So with that being said, I'm going to stop rambling and let him say a little something, something.
Well, she pretty much summed it up. I'm Eugene, class of 1994, Shaw grad. And I was actually an international relations major, so I'm very familiar with the mosque. Majority of my classes was in that building, International Studies Center. And we actually learned about the mosque. We took trips to the mosque, and majority of my professors, Dr. Mustafa, Dr. Ijai, most of them were Muslim. So it's it's kind of heartbreaking to see the folks treated this way. And again, as a Shaw alum, it's just heartbreaking to see our history being erased like this, which is why we're here to try to fight against it. But I guess we could get into it a little bit more. But that's me. And
that's who we are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'm relatively new to the game compared to most of you here when it comes to battling the administration. I first came on board to the board of the mosque itself back in 2013. And the reason why was because there were legal issues with the administration in terms of access to the building, repairs for the facilities, and so forth. And we little by little worked things out, but the university was biding its time. And the sad reality is when the COVID-19 pandemic kicked in 2020, as billions of people were miserable throughout this entire world, the administration of Shaw University saw a wonderful opportunity to kick us out once and for all. So the excuse of us being out because of COVID made perfect sense in March of 2020. In March of 2021, we didn't agree, but everyone goes at their own pace. We understood. But April 2022, we understood that we were basically being taken for a run because the chapel on campus was open to the public and we were not. And we protested, we asked for an explanation, and David Byrd did not deny the fact that the chapel was having services open to the public. And the background of all this, of course, is the very famous Shaw U district plan that we all know very well of, or the lack of a plan. You know? And so we went to a meeting. And I remember, Eugene, you were also at that same meeting back on the 14th of September. We made our concerns clear. And all we heard was from Kevin Sullivan, Yvonne Hawley, that they had no idea what was going on, apparently. I don't know anything about the mosque, as Kevin Sullivan said. But we got them up to speed. You know, I gave Yvonne Hawley all the documentation going back to March of 1981 about the establishment of the mosque. She said, okay, I'll look into it. I emailed them the next day, and I'll let you all guess as to whether or not they've gotten back to me. And so, yeah, that's how it's been. You know, we protested publicly for the first time, you know, outside the building in January 13th of this year. And the media reached out to Shaw University wanting a comment, and all they had was a blanket, evasive statement that we're open to all people. And they did say that mosque was open to the students. So I guess they had to do that for legal reasons. But ultimately, when asked if the chapel was open to the public, they didn't say anything. And so the COVID excuse was still given, oddly enough, in January of 2023, as silly as it sounds. And I guess because David Byrd's performance wasn't up to par, they handpicked, you know, Reverend Dr. Lamont Johnson to step in and issue a letter explaining the situation. And he had the audacity to say in his letter that the chapel was not open to the public, despite a Dr. King Day service happening of this year on YouTube that you can see. Despite a member of our own congregation going to Saturday worship service. And even as we speak, April 12th on Shaw's website, they're advertising an event at the chapel open to the public. So I don't know what's up in terms of their game plan and how they're working things out. But as the alum know, this is nothing new in terms of how they operate. And as of March 14th, we were informed that the mosque is permanently closed. The university will no longer host a public mosque, as they say it. So really, this is textbook gentrification. You know, we are a community of 40 years that is being erased in the face of redevelopment, quote unquote. So we really do appreciate the support of everyone. The timing of the public hearing, of course, is not ideal. But, you know, as Douglas put it himself the best, you know, if there is no struggle, there's no progress. And so I'm happy to report that at least the Muslim community understands the urgency. And despite the timing, they're definitely ready to show up and show support for the opposition.
Well, thank you all for that. And I would just like to say that I feel that Shaw feels very comfortable with them having the bias approach to the Muslims and closing down the mosque, because the city of Raleigh also treats Muslims in a very negative way around Ramadan, and not acknowledging their religious holidays. So if the city has that type of attitude, well, you know, other institutions, major institutions who even know better, even though, you know, they may, such as Shaw is a HBCU, should know better. But when the city has that approach and feels comfortable with it, you know, it's something that other businesses will take on. And especially in such an environment we're in now with DeSantis. I don't know if you all have heard that, you know, the NAACP has issued a notice to say don't travel to Florida for Black folks. You know, that's going back to those Green Book days. Well, you know, now we have to have that fear of not being able to be comfortable in the United States. And so we are expecting others to come, but meanwhile, we're going to continue. Eugene, I know I heard you mention that, you know, you had classes there in the Brown building. I don't know that exact address, but I know, like, in Raleigh, we would refer to it the Brown building, or where the mosque is. I know it's off of Martin Luther King. Someone could put the address in the chat for others, and then if someone knows it, say the address so people know exactly what we're talking about.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
we just refer to it as the International Studies Building, the
ISC
ISC,
building.
the
Yeah.
ISC building,
yeah.
and the gentleman who was instrumental, Dr. Uribe Mustafa, was my advisor.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that was instrumental, and I was thankful to have classes because it was the only building on campus in 1990 that had air conditioning. So, so we thank the Muslim community, Muslim community for that. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's just that with not just that particular building, um, the talk of removing, and they literally talking about removing historic structures from the campus. We know that the VP of real estate, Kevin Sullivan, has said they believe that all of Shaw's historic buildings should be relocated and put somewhere where they should be celebrated. And my response to that was, where? Reservation? Why would we be removing our historic buildings for somebody else? And then he uses code like, oh, there's no way to get a good cup of coffee south of McDonald's. And I've always take that to say, on the other side is black people over there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then in the meeting, he has his pointer and says, the city of Raleigh needs a parking lot. And he started pointing out this parking lot, which is actually right down the block from the Pope House, which has been damaged. Saying that a parking lot like this would fit perfectly right up against Leonard Medical School. So again, we're dealing with somebody who has stated that they want to move all of Shaw's historic buildings. The application specifically states how much damage needs to be done to these buildings in order for them to be torn down. And now he's talking about putting a parking lot right next to the medical school. So going back to the mosque, I'm just fully aware that they just plan to tear that thing down, and sake of what they're
Well,
called redevelopment, rezoning.
well, here's the question I have. I know that that may have been something new to you all, having a mosque in a building, and seeing if you're just say for people who may have been Christian or or other religion, that weren't familiar with people who were Muslims, or and then Shaw bringing that on campus. I was here in Raleigh, but I'm going to speak as if I didn't know. I can imagine the eyes and the ears and the ahs and the like wow on campus, but I can also imagine the people who had some fears and trepidation. um Two questions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
How
Go ahead.
did Shaw handle those who may were a little had some trepidation? Don't want to say they were bigots, but had some trepidations when you were there, when when they bought the mosque there, and then how was it celebrated? Maybe how it was celebrated is something that the city of Raleigh can learn
See,
how
for
to
me,
celebrate instead of tear down.
well, I came to Shaw in 1990. My time at Shaw was between 90 to 94.
Okay, so it was already there.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was already there. So by
Okay.
the time I got there, I didn't feel any of that. I didn't feel
Mm-hmm.
that. And one of the things that I think that's being missed is that we used to have a lot of workshops. A lot of international people used to come, uh,
Mm-hmm.
have workshops in RTP. Folks used to come and talk. We used to. This was my first time, and again, I grew up in Brooklyn, so and thinking I had a roommate who came from Wilmington, North Carolina. And again, this is pre-internet. We're talking 1990 to 1994. So when I came to school with the X, with a hat with an X on it, he's literally asking me, "Why do you have an X on your hat?" And I'm saying Malcolm X, and he
Mm-hmm.
did not know anything about Malcolm X. He said they learned about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. He knew absolutely nothing about Malcolm X. So us being able to get that type of culture from the International Studies Building, and again, they brought in tons of people from Africa. You grow up not really knowing. We always think Africa is just one country. not knowing it's a continent full of countries.
Mm-hmm.
So that's some of the things, and even again, coming to college not knowing these things. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? So when we used to have these workshops and Dr. Mustafa would bring in international people, I would literally ask them questions when I see Egyptians with this really, really light skin. I literally asked the guy, like, do you consider yourself black? And he was highly offended. But I needed him to educate me. He was highly offended. He was like, absolutely, I'm black, so and so. But he was whiter than the whitest white person you can imagine. But he was a proud Egyptian,
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
those were the type of things and those were the type of workshops and that type of culture. Because when we had these workshops, folks brought food, native foods, and things like that. So it was definitely a plus. But like I said, by the time I got to show up from 1994, it was already there, and I never felt any type of tension. And
Mm-hmm.
like me, the rest of the campus wasn't air conditioned. So anybody
Mm-hmm.
from Shaw that needed a break would go to that ISC building to at least get a little bit of relief.
But
Mm-hmm. Yes, Keisha.
I will say this. You would be surprised how many people didn't even know that a mosque was inside the International Studies building.
Mm-hmm.
Myself, as a mass communications major, I didn't know Shaw had a radio station until my 4th year at Shaw University.
Mm.
A lot of people don't know that Shaw University owns 40 acres of land on Rock Quarry Road. I'm saying all of that to say
Mm-hmm.
that there has always been, and I'm not proud to say this because, contrary to popular belief, I want Shaw to succeed. Shaw is a beloved institution, it's a national treasure. Everybody wants it to succeed. It's our alma mater. But for Shaw University to say that we want to redevelop, for them not to be honest with the Muslim community with regards to what they want to do, you don't hear anything about them saying, yeah, we're going to redevelop or we're going to get a bigger, brighter, better mosque. They're being
Mm-hmm.
very, very careful with the wording with regards to this redevelopment. Just, as we've been going to meetings and hearings and whatnot, every once in a while something would slip out about a bar or a nightclub or restrictions. And like, they have to have some sort of transparency to city council. However,
Mm-hmm.
the Shaw University community, we don't know anything. They're doing a lot of meetings, I guess, to kind of counter our grievances and whatnot. But my whole thing, I would really love to take this opportunity to let people, or to encourage people to pay attention to what they do and not what they say. You
Mm-hmm.
understand what I'm saying? For them,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for them to just as recently say, well, you guys, you can't come back in the mosque and that's it, without really giving an explanation, while not being honest. They're saying, well, the mosque is only for students. I can't find a single student who has access to the mosque. And just like Nigel said a little bit earlier, they're saying, well, the chapel is closed as well to the public. But that's not true. So all I'm asking people, what I am imploring people to do, as you listen to them try to justify why this redevelopment is necessary, and that's another thing that I would love to get into. They claim that Shaw don't have no money, and if we don't do this redevelopment, Shaw's going to fail and Shaw's going to die. We have proof that that is just not true.
Well,
Well, Keisha.
take it, how are they paying all these people to tell you that they're broke?
Right. Well, Keisha,
From the
let me
Kevin
ask,
Sullivans, the Ron Hollies, and the Mac Pauls. I can't imagine how many billable hours he has right about now. They're paying tons of people to tell you they have no money. That's
oh
interesting.
yes, oh yes. Well, let me ask, Keisha, do you feel that this backhanded and this sneakiness of getting rid of the mosque um um and not wanting the international studies program any closing that down is part of their part of the critical CRT, the critical studies. Yes, y'all know what I'm talking about. Part of a way for Shaw to say, okay, no, we're not part of that. Of course, we're here for that, but really truly, do doing it in a, as I'm saying, in a sneaky link way to say, hey, we're not here for critical, what is it called, race theory? Yes, critical race theory. But in reality, getting rid of the international studies courses and the mosque and all the culture and nourishment it brings. Do you feel that, that's part of the critical race theory?
Well, in my opinion, Wanda, and it's my opinion, that Shaw will be no more. There's no secretive way to kind of like, they're trying to there's not going to, in my opinion, there's not going to be a Shaw, because if it were, then why wouldn't they go to the planning commission with a plan? You understand what I'm saying? Like, they are literally treating this as like a blank check rezoning. They're saying, well, we can't really afford to give you a plan yet. We got to feel it out. Like, literally, there will be no plan. There will be no critical race theory. There's not going to be a Shaw University, because why would it be when they're talking about erasing like, again, they're not saying to the Muslim community, we want to go bigger, better, and brighter for the Muslim community, for Shaw University. What they're saying is nothing.
And just to piggyback on that, we got rid of a jazz station and sold it to a Christian conservative company. We did not take 3 bids as we should have. We just had one buyer. Again, there are folks at Shaw. This is not about rezoning for money for Shaw. This is about individuals who want to put money in their pockets.
Okay.
Again, her maiden name is Keisha Monk. Her great uncle is Thelonious Monk. Her mom, Dolores Monk, sung professionally. Her dad sung professionally. She comes from a musical family. So again, you have an alum here that you don't take advantage of the knowledge that they have, and you sell a radio station without taking the bites. Because once we heard it was being sold, we was like, listen, we can get the buyers for this. You know what I'm saying? Understood the value. They literally had conversations with alum like David Linton, who at the time when he was in school, Shaw University was the number 3 radio station in the country. Old market, number 3 in the country. We could go back and pull up photos, because everybody would come through Raleigh, come through Shaw University, from the from the Last Poets. Dan Blue actually got elected because of WSHA. Actually got elected because of WSHA, and now his son Dan Blue III represents Shaw University.
Yes.
So
yes.
it's the culture. The culture will be no more. The culture.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you all. We're gonna move to Nigel. Nigel, my question is, have you seen throughout the nation pushbacks and closings of mosque in at other HBCUs, or radical movements to in large metropolitan cities such as a Raleigh, Durham area, to stray to yeah, I guess to be non-transparent about why, or making it a harsh, making it harder to being able to uh I don't want to use the word celebrate, but to be able to um honor Muslim holidays. Have you seen that in other places? Something like Ramadan, like have you seen that in larger cities, or at other HBCUs, something like that beginning to happen, or is this just here in Raleigh a small thing?
So nationwide, when it comes to mosque in general, the biggest problem that people would see is getting permits for the construction of mosque, because that's the issue. Once you have the mosque established, the land is owned, there's a lot less the city can do. But when it comes to constructing mosques, you had issues of people saying not in my backyard. That's the biggest thing when it comes to mosque and generalized institutions nationwide. When it comes to the city of Raleigh specifically, there haven't been any issues in terms of the constructing of mosques that I know that are out of the ordinary, at least. The situation at Shaw University, though, is extremely unique. I can't think of any other situation like ours where you have a beautiful arrangement initially, you know, a Christian college, a mosque established, and an example of interfaith harmony. This is something that hasn't happened, to my knowledge, in any other place, which is all the more reason why you would think the university would want to preserve it. But at the end of the day, this is a situation that we have. And I think the unfortunate reality of what situation that we're in is the lack of accountability that Shaw University has as a private university. So you have that, not as much accountability. And then, of course, as you know, Eugene and Keisha have spoken to, that lack of accountability that leads to things not being managed properly amongst the administration itself. And for that reason, it's just so vital and important, this step in our democracy, where you have the city council that does have the ultimate say as to whether or not the university can proceed forward with their plans. So that's kind of what at least you've seen in the national level, a macro level, and a micro level as well locally. Things have gotten better little by little in terms of the recognition of Islamic holidays. You know, we have 2 Islamic holidays. One is at the end of Ramadan. And for many school systems, like in Wake County, it's officially a holiday where kids don't have to go to school. So there has been some progress. But once again, this is on a public level. Privately, there still is, of course, bigotry against Muslims, of course. And this is being exhibited through a private university right now.
And I want to apologize if I'm like, if I should be using Islamic versus Muslim. I'm just using what I'm accustomed or what I've grown up hearing or being around my friends or people who or of the Muslim faith, so Islamic faith. But I apologize. It's not to offend anyone. It's just my countryness. But I honor and definitely respect and celebrate and the Islamic faith, and of course that is why I'm here to fight for them to have space to celebrate their religion in all places 24/7 365 days, just like we do. The equity should be the same for the Islamic faith, just like it is for white privilege. And in saying that, I am going to introduce. Oh, is Faisal still here?
I think his connection might have dropped off for a minute there.
Oh, okay. When he comes back, I was going to introduce him. He is with Carolina Forward. Do we have any questions in the chat or on Facebook or such?
No, but early on there was one comment from a Sharon Brown saying that it was just on Howard's campus yesterday, and the upperclassmen had to live off campus because the dorms are closed and have been leased and or sold to big developers. Wondering if folks know about that.
Yeah. So that again, this is the one of the short talking points, and we need to know that the person that hired Dr. Dillard now works at Howard University, and so they keep referring to Howard University. Howard, first of all, they did have a more than 200-page campus master plan. There's not one building on Howard's campus that's taller than 10 stories. But there are buildings, because they lease the land that's currently on Howard's campus, that the students can't enter. In addition to that, there's no parking for the students on Howard's campus. They have to pay meters, and they only house freshmen, upperclassmen. There's no housing for the upperclassmen.
And so, and you all will get their information in the chat if you can further answer their question by sending them an email or Keisha and
Eugene.
we're going to Eugene. We're going to go ahead to go to Faisal before he while he's still here. Thank you for joining us, Faisal. I know your time is limited and you are busy, busy, busy. We were just speaking of the of about if what's happening at Howard. But we before that we were speaking on if what's happening on Shaw's campus of them closing the mosque um was something that we that's happening around at other HBCUs, and Nigel confirmed no. So basically, what's happening at Shaw is just a one-time thing. So I just wanted you to feel know where we are in this. But first, I want you to introduce yourself and give us some idea around some of the bigotry that you see as far as in planning, in zoning or rezoning, when it comes to in the Muslim communities, that you know about, seen or heard about that's impacting those communities, similar to what we were here this time last year dealing with the BRT. Over off of Western Boulevard. But please introduce yourself first and let us know about any other bigotry that you know about in other places around rezoning or taking of land or things like that.
Thank you, Wanda. Well, good afternoon to everybody. My name is Faisal Khan. I'm a founder of Carolina Peace Center, human rights, civil rights activist, focused on leadership development, and also on foreign policies, immigrants and refugees, institutionalized racism, and white supremacy. So this is, I just want to really kind of elaborate more on the issue with the Shah in respect to the Muslim community. This is a clear discrimination against the Muslim community. There's no question about that. We have reached out ourselves in collaboration with another organization called Peace Catalyst International, which is a Christian organization that focuses on interfaith dialogue with the Muslims. And we send out 2 letters, and a letter really to build a bridge, not to resolve anything, but at least to start to have a dialogue and have a conversation. And on both occasions, that letter was not responded. And that just shows a level of disrespect to Muslims, not only to us as leaders of this community, but also by extension to Muslim community and Muslims in other parts of the country as well. You know, just not even able to respond really kind of struck to me to the point that, okay, they're absolutely not interested in listening to us. They're not interested in sitting down at the table and having a really constructive dialogue and conversation. So undoubtedly, this is a case of bigotry and anti-Muslim racism. There's no question about that. Now, in respect to that, Wanda, you pointed out something last year also, that Raleigh City Council was trying to hold a meeting right during the Ramadan, during that Western Boulevard transit corridor. And we protested about that. And again, here we are again in Ramadan, they're holding this meeting. So it's just really kind of odd to me, on one hand, that the city council continues to hold these important meetings that are extremely sensitive to Muslim community at the most important, most holiest time in our faith.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to me, and again, I don't know what's in their heart, but to me, it's all about action. And to me, actions are much, much louder than anything else. It's that, why are you holding these important meetings that are really extremely sensitive and a substance of importance to the Muslim community right during the heart of Ramadan? But we are a resilient community. We will not allow this bigotry to go on. We need to do what we need to do is to focus, and be constructive, and to make sure that we stand up for our rights. And this is exactly what we're doing. This is with respect to how Shah has been with the Muslim community, who has been part of this country. Muslims, 1/3 of the Muslims came from Africa, unfortunately were forced to come to Africa and were enslaved. Muslim Americans play a very important role in our economics in our democracy, in our development, in our innovation. But I want to also add this, that with respect with the anti-Muslim racism, this is also racial bigotry as well, because
Mm-hmm.
there is a large majority of African American Muslims who are an important component to our community. And to me, that really goes deep because of the fact that how city council continues to develop, allows these builders to continue to develop and gentrify our communities, which can be replicated to all around the country now. It's not only here in Raleigh. And not only with respect to the gentrification, but also respect with the police racial profiling. We have had many events about how the police is in our communities, and how it's important that the city council need to invest in Black and Brown communities. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of biodiversity issue. There's a lot of issues about schooling. There's issue about crime. But let's just look at our communities, and it's very obvious how things are. It's very clear that the policy is to continue to racially profile by gentrifying our communities. And we are seeing the similar sort of pattern with Shaw University, but the fact is that their lack of respect to Muslims, who, for them, especially in the Raleigh community, close to Shaw University vicinity in the proximity of 5 to 10 miles, it's extremely important for them to have access to the masjid, to the mosque, to go to their prayers. Obviously, they're allowing the church, the chapel to be open after COVID. They're allowing people to come to their Sunday services. And here, the Muslim community is not allowed to come and perform their obligatory prayers on Friday. So, it's a saying where it takes a village to raise a child. To me, it takes entire institutions, all these institutions, whether City of Raleigh, whether Shaw University, all these developers coming together, and I don't find any discrepancy in that at all. It's very clear that from the beginning, they had intended to basically push Muslims out of there and do whatever they need to do to rezone the area for the developers. But, we got news for them. There are over 3,000 petitions being signed. There are hundreds of calls being made, not only by Muslim, but non-Muslim community to Shaw University. And there's a tremendous support and a tremendous protest against the Shaw University's position in regards to not allowing the Muslim community to have access to the masjid, to the mosque at Shaw University. So I am really interested, what is the position of the City Council of Raleigh? Because they have a track record of racial bigotry and religious bigotry against Muslims. There is a pattern there. And here we are again. On Tuesday, they're going to be hearing us, and I'm expecting, and we're expecting, to have a really large crowd in support of us. And I think the city council has a moral obligation, to the Muslim community, to understand that this is a very sensitive issue, and that they need to support our position, our demands. And we're going to keep fighting for it. We're not going to stop. We're not going to just be intimidated by these big developers or city council powerhouses that are sitting there, and if they feel they can do whatever they want, so be it. But we have a large majority. We have a very growing Muslim community in this area, and it's very unfortunate that this was not resolved amicably. We were very willing to sit down and talk. We were very polite. We're very much willing to foster a healthier relationship with Shaw University and come together as an interfaith community. But they definitely have shown that they're not interested, not only about listening to it, but not even willing to talk to us. So it's very clear. I am very disappointed that this has got this level. But this is not the first time where the Muslim Americans, regardless of the color, have faced these kind of issues before. And so be it. We're going to fight our rights. We are still in democracy. We still have our constitutional rights. And we feel that our religious rights are being violated.
And Faisal, is that how you pronounce your name? Faisal?
Faisal's fine. Yes.
And then it's Dr. Dillard, who's president at Shaw. They have really taken this stance that they don't need to respond. they haven't really responded to the alumni body as well. See, we always, every year, we have this alumni meeting during homecoming. That's when the majority of folks are here. Because again, alumni, they graduate, they go back to wherever.
Excuse me.
And she didn't even bother to show up to this year's, well, to the most recent alumni meeting. She didn't want to answer our questions. So, you know, I fully understand where you're coming from. And this is where the alumni body, and just like we're putting pressure, you're putting pressure. So now they're trying to hold their own meetings. But as Keisha stated earlier, watch what they do and not what they say, because a lot of the things that they're saying just aren't true. Right now, they're just saying things that just aren't
And
true.
what's going to happen, and you can quote me on this, what's going to happen is if and when the news of this religious discrimination starts really spreading, then they'll have no choice but to compromise, or I'm not even going to say compromise, to address you directly. This is what they do. The reason why they haven't spoken to you is historically they feel that to ignore a problem is the best approach, especially since the birth of the internet, because they used to really, really ignore us. But we have seen them, literally have witnessed them having to deal with certain things to kind of like calm the raging storm. So I'm telling you, which I would continue to encourage you to spread the word, to get more and more support from a global perspective. This is not a Raleigh issue. It's not a local issue. To me, it is a global issue. Yeah. Racial discrimination should not be tolerated at all.
And
excuse me. I will have a question for Faisal, and then I'm gonna move to you all for parting words. But Faisal, because I know you do a lot of work on the state and national level, do you feel that if you like this the state party, well, regardless of the party, but the state party, like the representatives, the federal representatives, were to get involved, and those at the national level were to get involved, because we are talking about now because as taxpayers, there's Pell Grant money, which is which comes from the federal level, and then there's state money that they use for tuition. Getting Do you feel like at this point, because there is a bias and there's bigotry, that it's time for them to get involved and make a statement? If the city doesn't, it's time for them to step in now, because of such a racist racist and denial of religious religious opportunity to express their religious faith at Shaw campus.
That's a really good point. I'm glad you brought it up. So here's the thing here. I mean, I know that a lot of our state legislators, and even our national leaders, and this not only goes for Raleigh, but I will speak for the entire country. There's a lot of olive branch being extended to Muslim Americans. There's always a lot of talk about messages. Even President Biden sends out this holiday message, but that's great. But the policy is not there. The policy is not there to back that up, which again goes back to the action. You can talk all you want to talk, but the action really is going to make a difference. The policy is going to make a difference. And I do expect that our local legislators, our attorney general, including our governor, to come out and show support to the Muslim American community, to taking photos on special holidays, issuing Eid Mubarak statements. That's really good. Symbolically, that's great. Yes, it's great, like Brother Nigel had mentioned earlier, that we have a religious holiday. So there's been some progress and improvement, and that's a good progress. But again, this is a really big issue right now with respect to the Muslims not having access to the mosque. So they really need to show support, because, when it comes time for election, they're all there. They're all attending these meetings and At the mosque, the Democratic Party it's invited. They come and talk
Mhm.
about it. They want their vote.
Mhm.
They want the election. But I don't see them when it comes to these issues. I don't see them tweeting.
Right.
I don't see them issuing any press releases. I don't see them calling me or calling Brother Nigel, anybody saying, hey, what's going on? We'd like to help you out. I don't see them calling Shaw University and saying, we like to understand why it's such a big problem for you guys. And that to me is a problem right now, that's where the bias is that, again, when it comes time to election, it comes when time for getting the votes, they're out there. They're willing to attend, they're willing to show up, they want endorsements. And I might personally have endorsed a lot of politicians. I don't do
Yes.
that anymore because I
Mhm.
said to them, if I don't see you standing up for my community, but I'm standing up for you, don't expect me to stand up for you again. And I'm not going to
Mhm.
do it, you know.
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
and and so I know that a lot of them in their heart do want to support Muslim community, but that's complacent to me. Silence is a permission, you know.
Mhm.
Silence is permission to what's going on. Martin Dr. King talked about that too. So, he's one of the greatest quotes of Dr. King is about, he's not going to remember about the words of his enemies, but the silence of his friends, you know. And this is the
Mhm.
time when we need our friends. So there's definitely disappointment in that regard too. Also, is that Republicans, and I'll be very open about it, candid about it. That's fine. They have their positions, and I like to work with both parties. Who are not biased, who are willing to work, who are willing to do the right thing, who are willing to support all communities, and regardless of whatever the issues are. But I want to see Democrats come out because I'm a registered Democrat, and I
Mhm.
want them to
Mhm.
come out and show some support, and they haven't yet, especially in the month of Holy Ramadan. I like to see Attorney General come out because if
Right.
you're not going to show support,
I think
Oh,
Fatal said that.
he's back. He's back.
You
Yeah.
back?
Faisal, would you be able to say the last bit before you got cut off a bit?
yeah,
About
what
general.
I'm saying is that I said that if you're not going to stand up, and you meaning a lawmaker, an elected official, if you're not going to come and show support, even a symbolic support, if you're not going to stand up for our community, then don't expect
Mhm.
us to stand up for you for next election because that vote is not
Mhm.
going to come. You
That's
know,
right.
yeah. And now it's all about, doesn't matter Democrat, Republican. I don't play any more political lines. I want to see if this person is on the right side of the justice and equality, and
That's right.
being peace and love to the communities. You know,
Mhm.
and again, talk is great. You know, you can talk all you want to talk, but are you going to walk the talk? That's my issue here. And right now, I don't see that happening, especially the fact that this has been covered by the media,
Mhm.
has been telecast in the news. Media has shown people praying on the sidewalk,
Mhm.
Muslim
Mhm.
community praying on the sidewalk of the
In the
street because
rain
they cannot go in the mosque.
Kids.
with
And
kids.
it's unacceptable for me that our lawmakers are just sitting quietly and watching this happen. And
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
promise to them that you don't expect Muslim American vote because a lot of people think that there's a very small minority. I got news
No.
for people.
Mm-mm.
Bernie Sanders in 2016 won Michigan because of Muslim vote. you
Mhm.
know and this was actually acknowledged by the Jewish community in Michigan. So Muslim, again, community are growing. Our more and more young people are getting involved in politics. They're running for the offices, and more are going to run for the offices, including
Mhm.
here in our
Mhm.
locally.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a wake-up call for them that if they think that this is the good old pattern that they've been living, that it's a small community, it's a small minority, you don't have to worry about it, they got it all wrong. This country is changing very dramatically fast, and in 20 years this is going to be a very different country demographically, religiously as well.
Yes. Yes.
And so
So
can I just add
What?
something really quickly? And I'm sorry, Wanda, very, very quickly, because the last time I protested with the Muslim community, they literally handed over the microphone to the children. My,
Mm.
my train of thought was, these children are our future doctors, lawyers, astronauts, scientists,
Mm.
educators. And Shaw University is supposed to be a reputable, historic institution of higher learning. And these kids are literally just asking university to allow them to pray. These are our
Mm.
community children. There are
yeah,
community
Now
children, and
that'll
that is
make me
very,
cry right there. That.
yes,
yeah,
That.
it
yeah,
is very, it is very painful for us to see these
Mm.
yeah.
children asking the university to allow them
Not a
to pray.
third world country.
Well,
The
Right.
United
what I was
States
going to
of
comment,
America.
what I was going to comment earlier before Wanda you asked me the question is about how brother was saying that they have not responded to even the alums and alumni, and it's been a challenge. To me, I want Shaw University to really take a step back and really reflect, what do you stand for? What kind of education do you want to show? I mean, you have students walking campus. I'm sure a majority of the students are well aware now what's going on. Is this the kind of message? Is this the kind of institution you want to build? That bigotry is acceptable, anti-Muslim racism is acceptable, you know, that this is what we should be preaching. No, you want students, especially what we have gone through the last 4 or 5 years of previous administration, that was very blatant and very very clear where this stood on, that you would think that people have learned, that the institutions have come to terms that what, we need to put our differences aside. We need to respect other communities. We need to respect religion, race, gender,
Mm-hmm.
whatever, sexual orientation, and we need to work together, not cut
Mm-hmm.
off. And
Right,
so what
right.
Shaw has done, exactly what Shaw has done and demonstrated, is exactly what we saw in the last 5 years. And that's really a tragedy, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they get money for being inclusive as well. And but yet they're not. So I'm gonna read the demands, and after I read the demands, I'm going to let you all speak 5 minutes each on what you would like to see from here around the demands, and as we go forward. Also around these demands, I think is also it, taking this to the next level, to the state level, start putting pressure on the attorney general office. This is an election year. He is running for governor, and start putting pressure on some of these other state officials to also moving to the federal level. As you all have said, it's about action now. And so the action we're saying for the city is that we demand, we're not asking anymore. It's not a request. Like I said, we're a bit more radical here. We have seen what you all do for people who ask. I mean, people, they're sending you emails and everything, you all don't answer. So we demand that the city of Raleigh, again, the city of Raleigh and the planning department respect the Muslim community as they do white privileged developers. We demand that zoning case Z-59-22 be rescheduled until after Ramadan during during the evening public hearing. And I want to make sure I repeat that, during an evening public hearing. That's when it's rescheduled. We want this in the evening time when it's more accessible for people who actually have jobs, or whether they have a job or not, can attend. Do not reschedule this thing to the afternoon, because that's what they did to the BRT, and it was harder for us to come. So we know how they do sneaky stuff. So it's for the public. I mean, for the evening, and so that there's ample time to give the public to learn more, to learn of the master plan, so they can be working on their master plan as to what will be done at Shaw University, and to provide feedback. And that's the other thing. What a lot of this pushback is, it's not that, oh, Shaw not rezone. We don't know what Shaw is going to do, other than the little things we've heard during planning. And that's because they will not submit a master plan, when we have seen other developers come in there with smaller projects and larger projects, and come in there with their zoning request with a master plan. So you can't tell us you don't have one, because we have seen you, the land attorney for this zoning request, Matt Paul, take city council members on a tour around Shaw. The, like, to tell, like, this is a possibility, this is a possibility. Well, how can you have sorry, stop that. A plan, some type of plan, whatever your vision is, submit that to us. Okay.
Wanda,
The other part.
I have a one point to add, if I may, really quick. Is
Mhm.
that in terms of the petitions, in terms of the phone calls and emails have been sent to Shaw in the last month and a half, there's been a lot of people from non-Muslim community, from other interfaith communities that have been reaching out. So this is a very concerted effort, a
Oh
community
yes. Oh
effort from so
yes.
many different directions, people coming from different faiths or non-faith religious communities, and
Yes.
putting, because I've had people message me, and I put a call to action about demanding and exactly what we are asking for, that they have personally have messaged me that have called, they have reached, and they're very unhappy about this. So I think this is also, I think in the long run, it's going to really damage Shaw University's reputation. I mean, as a
Yes.
parent, would you want to send your kid to a school like that? I don't think so.
Well, I mean, that was going to be my next thing too. Well, okay, I'm gonna finish this. And then I'm gonna let you all respond. Give y'all your 5 to 10 minutes for closing. And so for the we want to see the master plan and what will be done. And we demand that all of the employees working for the City of Raleigh's planning department who have proven to be repeat offenders to take racial equity classes from a private training service outside of the city, because this is their second time. So obviously it's you all. It's not a mistake. You do it. You've done it twice. And again, we want this rescheduled and pushed back. And other than the state, other than the federal government, because they do get Pell Grant and funds like that, that says that you cannot be. And when you say that, people like to believe because they are private. Private does not mean you don't use tax money. They are using our tax dollars. They are using federal funds. So you still have guidelines that you must meet. But the next thing, next people, I think we should start working on are their funders, or their funders, and there are people who give them grants, these nonprofits, these sponsors, these major corporations. Like, I know they do a lot of things with like the cancer research funds and different ones like that. And I feel like if they knew exactly what was going on, they could lose a lot of the funding. And you can go to their website and such and find, these organizations, and it would take just one letter basically. And speaking of one letter, after this, we're going to send one letter to the planning department and let them know that, these are our plans for this to be pushed back or rescheduled. We can still show up, but if it's rescheduled, it's it's still time. People who are coming for us to all meet somewhere to and have our own meeting, and to discuss what can be done, because we wouldn't have to be at city council unless there are other issues. And when I say other issues coming up after this, are zoning cases that's going to that are going to impact all majority of the land on the back side of Shaw, which is called the Prince Hall district. And they've already requested for the overlay to be lifted. And since Shaw has got it lifted, now they're going to go for the rest of the land and try to take it, which was all black owned land. And these developers are now trying to, white developers are trying to take this black owned land and make it this whatever. And there's really no community benefits in it for the black community. And there are a lot of homeless people find space, finds use space there to, as homes. And So that's next. That's what's coming up next. So they have a game plan. So should we. So I'm going because I know Faisal has to leave. I'm going to go to Faisal for his parting words, then Nigel, and then the Myrids.
Thank you, Wanda. So first of all, I want to thank everybody on the panel to be in this call, and thank you for your leadership and your activism, and your continuous efforts to stand up for what is right. I think that it's important to understand that I think this is a very landmark situation, because I think that this can really set the tone and send out a message not only to Raleigh but out all around the country, as more and more people are relocating in the city, and more people want to develop here, and there are more IT companies moving in. I think they need to really examine this and be very careful, because they already have and had a lot of a negative publicity, which is really they earned that. I mean, they've earned that themselves by being so defensive, not willing to communicate, not willing to engage, not willing to sit down and talk, not willing to correspond. So I think that this sends out a really negative and a very toxic message, and a really bad message to our children, to our youth. But I want to just close this saying that Muslim Americans, irrespective of their ethnicity, color, or race, are a very integral part of our democracy, you know, and they have made very significant and very impactful contributions to our economy, to our culture, to our innovation, to our development. And I feel that sometimes these people underestimate who we are. They underestimate our history, they underestimate our culture, they underestimate our religion. So we're not here to apologize or to demonstrate that we're better. We're not here for that. We already know that. And as an American Muslim, unapologetically, you know, myself and all of you on the panel, whether it's religious bigotry or racial injustice, we're going to continue to fight, and our children are going to continue to fight. So this thing's not going to go away. We have the right, we reserve the right. Muslim community has a full right to have access to the masjid, to the mosque, to pray like any other community. And that's one of our First Amendment in the U.S. Constitution, freedom of religion. And the position that Shaw University have taken has been extremely disappointing. It's been really hurtful, and it's been really damaging. More to their damage to their own credibility and to their reputation. We are Muslims. We have already been through this a lot. We've been dealing with this for decades, and for a long time, not only here but in Europe and other parts. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of bigotry. There's a lot of misinformation. But we are a strong and resilient community, and we stick together, not only for ourselves but for anything that is injustice. And we're going to keep fighting for this. And I think people like you that are on the panel, and there's so many thousands of petitioners and people who have been calling and writing, that just demonstrates that we have a lot of support. We're just not a bunch of few people just hauling or screaming or protesting on the streets. This is a concerted effort of thousands of people out there who are very concerned, and they're supporting our position, which is to allow the access to the mosque. So I think that I feel very positive. I do feel that we're going to prevail in the end. And thanks to everybody's hard work and committed hard work and perseverance to make sure that we continue to fight for our rights. And this country has been built on that. Unfortunately, we go back 400 years. We have seen the discrimination from time of this country was built before that against the African American community, and 1/3 of them were Muslims. Just to add on to that, which a lot of people don't even know that. Of course, it's never been taught in our classrooms, because that's too threatening to our racial structure here. But I feel that I will do my best, whatever I can, my capacity, and I'm honored and I'm very blessed to work beside Brother Nigel and others and everybody else on the panel and people that I don't even know who are behind the scenes. There's so many people out there. So, this is everybody's. This is not only a Muslim issue. This is our humanity issue. This is about our humanity. This is about our children, our grandchildren. This is about what is right. And the right is that Muslim Americans, Muslim community of Raleigh and beyond have a right to worship at the mosque in Shaw University. Thank you.
We are fighting for our very existence. I wish I could take credit for those words, but that was actually said by President Dillard in a News Observer article from last November. The audacity of that statement, though. If you go to the classrooms of Shaw University, you still see students there. You go to the administrators' offices, you still see administrators there. What you don't see in the mosque is Muslims. So we are the ones fighting for our very existence. She goes on to say, work with me. Work with our community because Shaw has an opportunity to make a difference. We will make that difference by working together, being honest, and deciding the best way forward. Had she done any of those things or her administration, maybe, just maybe, we could have a vote for yes for the rezoning application without a master plan. But she hasn't. So that is off the table. So our demands are simple. Open the mosque, master plan first, and then rezoning vote. We're not asking a lot, very simple. And the reasons why they can't do that must be a cause of concern for every single person involved in this process. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Wanda. Again, we're so grateful for this opportunity to be heard. What's so painful about all of this is that we have been trying to speak to members of city council. Even the mayor has blocked our email address, in spite of the fact that all we've done was innocently ask her for the opportunity to be heard. And so I just want to say quickly that the name of this movement is called Save Our Shaw, not Save My Shaw, it's Save Our Shaw. Shaw University belongs to all of us. Its history is just invaluable. We support you, Nigel, the Muslim community. Faisal, thank you so much for everything that you have said. We wholeheartedly are standing behind you. And what I want everybody to know that's listening in today is that we are stronger together. So regardless of whether or not you're an alum of Shaw University, or if you just live in the neighborhood, or maybe you're watching this Facebook stream from halfway around the world, this struggle is all of ours. We have to do everything that we can to try to release this development pressure, and to listen to what we're saying. Pay attention to what Shaw does and not what they say. Because if we don't do something, and we don't do something now with regards to utilizing our voice, it will definitely mean the death of Shaw University, its history, and everything that comes with it.
And in addition to that, it was also troubling that one of the city council members said that she's not going to be there. And she asked them to postpone this until May, which would have also been outside of Ramadan. Am I correct in that? Would have been outside of Ramadan. Mm-hmm. So, and then they took a vote. And it kind of concerned me that Corey Branch was the one who opposed that, because this is in his district. You know what I'm saying? This Black history is within his district. And we need him to be accountable with what's going on. His alma mater, North Carolina A&T, started on the campus of Shaw University. His alma mater, A&T, which is now the largest historically Black institution, very first president was a Shaw University grad. So it's not just, again, it's not our Shaw University, it's all of our Shaw University. All of this culture, all of this history, and there's too much time spent on 4 historic buildings. The entire campus is historic. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of history that took place with students going downtown to Woolworth, getting locked up. Dr. King walking those grounds. It's just the protest from 1971. Over 4,000 students came to Shaw University when they was talking about merging all of the public schools. Shaw University was ground zero. And most importantly, before I go, Shaw University is not broke. Shaw University is not broke. Nonprofit don't mean no profit. And see, Dr. Diller keeps saying you can't run a school off of tuition alone. You can't run a school off of no tuition. As she's dismembering the university by breaking off the Muslim community, by breaking off the radio station, and this constructive eviction by making conditions bad for the students, the faculty, and staff. We currently have an empty dormitory on campus right now when enrollment is up 30% at HBCUs across the country. You're talking about $5 million a semester that we're not getting because she's making plans to turn the campus over to the developers. So we have to stand firm and we have to stand strong, and we continuously come with facts, unlike some of the things that we're hearing from the university. But I truly appreciate you, Miss Wanda, for putting this together. And again, we're stronger together.
And thanks for everyone who's listened to this Facebook Live. We truly, truly appreciate it. Be sure to go to saveourshaw.org and sign the petition if you haven't done so already, and share it with a friend.
Well, I would like to thank all of you. Definitely Wah. You don't see him, but when you see me, you see Wah. Okay, I cannot do all of this with my stutter and all. My desire one day is to be like Keisha. But anyway, I please share this. Every time you're seeing something out, share this. And it can be transcribed in various languages all over the world. So I would love to know what I sound like in other languages. So anyway, share this, please. And we can do more things like this as but as you all see, I don't feel embarrassed any kind of way to put my cash app in there because I don't get paid for this kind of stuff. And I've sacrificed a lot, taken a lot out of my pockets that's supposed to be going to Duke Energy and all these other places. But I have to be more responsible. I need to practice what I preach. So my friends tell me that I should be asking, and put my cash app in, asking for something when I'm doing these type of things, because um, there are people who get paid thousands for this, and so but I enjoy it. And if I could do it for free, I would. Um, but we shall continue. We want this pushback, City of Raleigh Planning Department. You all need to go get some training for equity and diversity. You all have no clue about culture, our religions, our race. It's evident. And we are, as we grow, we're it's about, as we grow, it's also about informing people for them to take the message all around the world. And our next moves are most definitely state level, national level, politicians, and then also hitting up these sponsors of Shaw, these funders of Shaw, and letting them know. I mean, is this something you would approve of? I think not. So, and now, Shaw, we're transparent over here. We'll let you know what we're getting ready to do. So, but you all are not, and it's unfortunate. We wouldn't be here if you were transparent. And but I just want to say thank you. Yes, save our Shaw, save our city, save our black land, save our ability to celebrate or to worship in any religion we choose. But particularly tonight, we're talking about Ramadan, um, and that people do not have to feel a pressure to attend a city council meeting just because whiteness feels like, oh, Ramadan means nothing. It means everything to those little children who were just asking to pray. I hope that's on video somewhere. Oh, I pray that's on video. If so, that needs to be shared as well. So thank you all. Have a great night, and shall be talking soon. We meet tomorrow night, Thursday, for Wake County Housing Justice Coalition meeting for game plans and strategic talk. And talk to y'all later.
Thank you.
Holla.
Thank you.
Yes.
Bye-bye.